This video is to demonstrate how to begin assembly on a quilt square. So I'm going to take a look at my little map that I've created, and I'm going to start from the center and work my way clockwise outward from the center. So that means I'll be starting with pieces A and B, and I will be sewing those together first. So I have my stack of pieces sitting right next to me, ready to go. These are pieces A and B here. The side you've marked all of your lines on should be the wrong side of the fabric. So make sure that you are putting it together properly. When you lay it together, you'll be laying it together pretty to pretty, or right side to right side, so that you can actually see those marks as you sew. It's a good idea to lay your pieces A and B side by side so that you can make sure you're putting the correct side together. Obviously, for the center squares, you could theoretically turn them any direction unless you had a very specific directional print that you wanted to face in a certain way. But you could lay them together on any side and they would work. That will not be the case as we work our way on other pieces, so you have to be conscious of what side you are adding it to. So a good idea is to lay them right in front of you, right sides up, determine the side you're going to sew, and then prepare that side. So if I'm going to put them together like this, I will match up pieces A and B, like so, and I will pin them and get ready to sew. So short pieces don't need a lot of pins, just a couple of pins will be plenty. And I'm going to go ahead and turn on my machine. I will line up my piece so that the needle goes right over that pencil line that I've drawn, and use my presser foot to put down, to hold the fabric in place. I also can be keeping an eye on the grooves on the sewing machine itself as I sew. Sink my needle, go backward a couple of stitches and forward. Sew all the way to the edge and then backward again. So my first two pieces are assembled, but I'm not quite ready to move on yet. It's important to have your iron ready and handy close to you, or jump up and go to the ironing board, because you need to be ironing each piece open as you proceed. When we start adding new pieces, we'll be running over our other seam allowances. So you want to make sure that they're pressed open and smooth before you do that. Okay, now here's pieces A and B. I'm going to flip them back over. They're side by side now and sewn together in the center. Here's A, here's B. And if I look back at my little diagram, now, if I'm working in a clockwise direction, I've sewn A, B, and I'm ready to put C on the bottom edge of A and B. So I'll go ahead and grab C. This is C here, and it will sit right below these pieces. So as I assemble, again, it's great to look at it with the right sides facing up so you can determine the proper side to put it on, and then start layering your pieces together. When I run over other seams, so when I'm adding this solid piece, long piece of C to pieces A and B, I'm going to face them so that A and B and their seam are facing up and looking at me. This way, when I run over these seam allowances as I sew, I can make sure they stay flat and open. If I have it flipped over this way, I could potentially run over this seam and unintentionally sew it this way, right? And have one seam allowance folded over the other. I want them to stay open, so that's not the best idea. So again, line them up like so. I'm going to pin end to end first, get that lined up, and then pin in the center. You can go ahead and put pins through those flat seam allowances so that they stay open for you. You can just be very sure that they're not going anywhere. And again, for a short piece like this, this is really the only pins that you need to put in it. You don't need many more. All right, we're going to line back up. Okay, now I've got pieces A, B, and C assembled. You can see that here. And the next thing we will do is get our iron out again and make sure that these pieces are flat and open. So as you add more and more pieces to your quilt square, you'll see that you keep these seam allowances open and they're going to neatly kind of stack on top of each other like that. And I can look at it from the front side, and now I've got A, B, C, and I'm ready to come to this other side and sew on D. Before I do that, I'm going to check my thread. It was doing something wonky on the last stitch. Go ahead and rethread my needle. Hopefully it will behave for me. Okay, now that will behave. Okay, piece D goes on this side. So I'm double checking. I've got A, B, C, D. D goes here. And now I, again, will flip it to the side that I can see the previous seam as I add this next piece on. You'll notice as I'm going, each piece that I'm adding is going to completely cover one side of what I've just sewn. You will never be adding on a piece that is longer than what you just sewed. If you find that's the case, you've gone awry somewhere and you're sewing something out of order. So do be double checking the little map that you have to make sure you're sewing on the correct piece. Again, making sure these are open and flat as I run over them. Okay, as I add on my next piece, I will be checking where that piece goes on. So I've got A, B, C, D, and now I will add E. And E goes on the top edge of my fabric, like that. So it will cross more than one seam. So this is the first time we've approached more than one seam. And you can see that you'd want to, again, face it from the side that you have the seams on to make sure that you have control over that. It's pinned, it's ready to go. So we'll sew on this piece. And again, I'm careful after every single piece I add on that I go back and iron that new seam open so that everything is staying flat as I add the next piece. So you can see here, it's starting to take shape a little bit. I've got the center of my square, and I could go back and I can shade or I can check off what I've sewn so that I make sure I'm right where I want to be. So far I've sewn all the way to piece E, and the next piece I would sew would be here on the right side, piece F. Then I would work down, up the side, to the top, and then back on this side, and keep going as it radiates out and gets larger and larger.